So as they walked along and as they walked through the forest, the woodcutter would explain the purpose of each tree that they found and how its purpose would be fulfilled by its shape. That's because some of the trees were straight, could be used for planks. Some were curved and so could be used for the ribs of the ship, and some were especially tall and so they could be used for the masts. Well, after they walked around in the forest for some time, one particular oak tree caught the attention of the grandson. Caught his attention because this particular tree had absolutely no straight limbs. And it wasn't tall, its trunk was short, and it was gnarled. And while it had curves, the curves that it had went in all the wrong directions. And so the grandson asked if he could just cut down the tree, since it was obviously totally useless for the purpose of shipbuilding. We could cut it down for firewood, the grandson said, and then at least it would be of some use to us. But the grandfather's advice to him was to just let it be. So on they continued in terms of their journey through the forest, and after a few more hours of cutting down other huge trees in that forest, the grandson grew weary, he grew tired, and he asked if there was some shady area, any place in the forest where they could go and where they could rest. And so the woodcutter took his grandson over to that very same old oak tree that earlier he wanted to just cut down. There they rested against its short trunk, and there they rested in the shade of its gnarled branches. And while they rested there, the woodcutter took that as an opportunity to share some wisdom with his grandson. So he told his grandson about the value of one's awareness of and one's recognition of all sorts of things, both in the forest and in the world and in one's life. Some things, he said, some things are readily apparent, like the tall, straight trees. But he said some things are less apparent and require a closer examination, like the proper curve in those limbs of some of the trees. And other things, he said, other things might initially appear to have absolutely no purpose at all or no value at all, just like this gnarled old oak tree. So, the woodcutter said, so you must learn to pay careful attention every day, so that you can recognize and so that you can discover the purpose that God has for everything in creation. After all, he added, it was this old oak tree that you had deemed to be useless except for firewood that now gives you the rest and the cool that you need. So, the woodcutter said, so remember, grandson, not everything is as it first appears. So, be patient, recognize, and discover. Well, those comments by the woodcutter reveal that woodcutter's sermon is a pretty good example of what Jesus seemed to be trying to say to the disciples, seemed to be showing the disciples in today's gospel, one of Jesus' appearances after his resurrection. And the question that Jesus asked in today's gospel are questions that he still asks and that he now asks us. Why are you frightened? Jesus asked. And why do you have doubts? Questions that Jesus still asks today. Now, why were the disciples feeling that way? Well, because they felt powerless in the face of everything that had happened to them and that everything that was happening. Why were they feeling that way? Well, because they didn't understand what had happened on Good Friday or on Easter Sunday or on the road as is described in today's gospel when that stranger came and stood among them. They didn't understand what was happening, and they didn't recognize who was standing with them. And so they were startled and they were terrified. That's because some things are readily apparent. Some things are less apparent and require closer attention and examination. Other things appear to have absolutely no purpose or value at all. And so Jesus showed them his hands and his feet. And then he took a piece of broiled fish and he ate it. Actions and phrases, especially this idea of taking broiled fish and eating it. Actions and phrases and words that once again remind us of what we now call Holy Communion. And then Jesus opened their minds to understand the Scriptures. And he did all of that for them for the same reason that he still does all of that for us. So that, if you will, so that we can have spiritual eyesight. So that we can have Easter glasses to wear. Because not everything is as it first appears. So because of that, we sometimes need to be patient and to look closely in order to recognize and discover the purpose that God has in everything. That God has in creation, in our world, in our questions, in our decisions, and in our own very lives. Jesus did all that. In fact, Jesus does all that because our windows also are the windows into our minds and our hearts and our souls, and because the eyeglasses, the glasses that we wear, how we view things, how we see things, how we look at things, they play an important role in determining how we feel about things and how we respond to things and how we enjoy our own lives and, in fact, how we find our own faith to be trustworthy and reliable. That's because what was true for the disciples in today's gospel is still true. Life often gives us one particular style of glasses to wear. And that style is typically dark glasses. Glasses that often cause us to see things darkly. Glasses that make it difficult for us to see any light at all at the end of those dark tunnels in which we find ourselves. They're glasses that cause us to see things negatively, to see things as a threat, to see things superficially at times, to see things with a kind of tunnel vision that does not open for us all the width and breadth of life that God has for us. Now it seems as though the disciples in today's gospel were wearing those very kinds of glasses when Jesus first came and stood among them. And so as a result, they were frightened, they were startled, they were doubting, and they were disbelieving, and surprisingly of all, they were not even able to initially recognize him. But then Jesus took those Good Friday glasses off of them and he replaced them with Easter glasses. And he did it for them in the same way that he does it for us, by opening our minds and our eyes and our hearts so that the gospel can be heard and seen and felt and tasted in his sacred word and in his holy meal. So that we can see that in the sacredness of his mission for us, for our congregation, the sacredness of the mission that's involved in each one of our individual lives. And Jesus does all of that for the same reasons that he's always done that, so that his presence can be relied upon even when it can't always be seen. He does it so that God's providence and purpose can be relied upon even when it cannot always be totally understood. But for us, just like for those disciples, that's often easier said than done. Because life's experiences, it seems, are constantly at work trying to blind us to those very realities. Life's experiences, it seems, are always trying to put on us those nearsighted, those short-sighted, those Good Friday glasses on us. And yet through this same sacred book and through this same sacred meal, Jesus still visits the scenes of our living with his own resurrected presence, and he still gives us Easter glasses to wear, glasses that forever change what we see and how we see, glasses that give us the serenity somehow to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change those things we can change, and the wisdom to know the difference. Jesus has constantly given us glasses that allow us to see light even while we are indeed surrounded by darkness. Glasses that allow us to see with hope and with faith and compassion and awareness even while others around us are caught up instead in cynicism and discouragement. They're glasses that allow us to see why we can indeed give thanks in all circumstances and why we can rejoice always. They're glasses that open our eyes to the wonders of God in our lives and in the lives of others. They're glasses that allow us to see the needs of others, not as a threat, but as an opportunity. They're glasses that allow us to see each new day. Each new day is an invitation to live each day with a new sense of vision and purpose. Glasses that allow us to see each new day as a gift of God, no matter how disappointing the day before has been and no matter how threatening the day after might be. They're glasses that allow us to see the presence of Christ in all the times of our lives and all the times in our lives and in all of our living. And that's so important because some things are readily important and apparent, but some things are less apparent and require more examination and awareness. And other things seem to have absolutely no meaning or value at all. That's because some things in life give us Good Friday glasses, but Jesus gives us Easter glasses. And with these glasses, no matter what we look at, no matter when we look, no matter what seems to be happening all around us, with these Easter glasses, we can always see the presence of Christ and the power of His resurrection in our lives and in our world, which is why that woodcutter's advice is still always true. Not everything is as it first appears. And so we are patient. And we pay attention. And with the grace of God, we still discover. We still discover God's presence in our lives and in our world. In our good times and our bad times, in our joy and in our sorrow, we are still patient. We still pay